When a woman is genuinely interested, the reality is that she will almost never show it in the way a man might hope for or logically expect. This fundamental disconnect is the root of much confusion and missed opportunity in dating. A man often operates on a straightforward premise. If you like someone, you show it. You might approach them, give a compliment, or ask them out. The signals are meant to be clear. But for many women, influenced by a complex web of social conditioning and self-preservation instincts, the calculus is entirely different. The very act of revealing her interest is perceived not as an invitation, but as a strategic surrender. She believes on a deep and often unconscious level that her entire value in the romantic dynamic rests upon her ability to be pursued, to be the one who is chosen. The second she openly shows her hand, she feels she loses all her leverage, transforming from a prize to be won into a supplicant hoping to be accepted. This is why she hides her true feelings behind a sophisticated array of masks. She will act aloof when her heart is racing. Delay her text replies not out of busyness, but out of a calculated need to appear detached. And she might even tease or lightly criticize you instead of offering the compliment that is on the tip of her tongue. To a man, this behavior feels insane, contradictory, and even disrespectful. Why would someone who likes you go out of their way to seem uninterested? But from her perspective, it is a necessary game. It's a performance designed to achieve one primary goal: to protect her vulnerability while simultaneously testing your resolve. She is following an internal script that whispers, "If I make it too easy, he will get bored and won't value me. If I admit I like him first, he will have all the power and will inevitably pull away." This isn't about being manipulative in a malicious sense. It's about survival in the emotional landscape of attraction. The fear of exposure is paralyzing. To lay her heart bare is to step off a cliff, giving you the power to either catch her or let her fall. The potential wound of rejection isn't just about a bruised ego. It feels like a validation of her deepest insecurities about her own worth. Therefore, the coldness, the distractions, the contradictions, they are all part of a carefully crafted illusion of indifference. She is trying to control the narrative, to keep you uncertain and invested, hoping that you will be the one to see through her act without her ever having to say a word. She is communicating her interest in the only way that feels safe to her, by desperately trying to hide it. The compulsion to conceal attraction is not a random or consciously devised strategy. It is a deep-seated survival mechanism, forged by a combination of social conditioning and a primal fear of vulnerability. To understand why a woman behaves this way, one must look beyond the moment and into the lifelong lessons she has absorbed about power, value, and safety. From her earliest experiences, a woman is often taught, both directly through advice and indirectly through cultural narratives, that her desirability is her currency. Fairy tales depict princesses waiting to be chosen, well-meaning friends warn against seeming too eager, and societal messages consistently reinforce that the pursuer is the man, while her role is to be the worthy object of pursuit. This framework teaches her that her value is not inherent, but is confirmed and validated by a man's willingness to chase, invest, and prove himself for her. To flip this script by openly admitting her own desire feels like a fundamental violation of the rules, one that could instantly devalue her in the eyes of the very person she hopes to attract. This external conditioning merges with an internal, powerful fear of emotional exposure. For a woman, revealing her attraction is not a simple act of honesty. It is an act of profound vulnerability that feels synonymous with handing over all her power. It places her ego and self-worth directly on the line, making her completely susceptible to a rejection that would not just be a simple no, but a devastating blow to her core sense of being desirable. This terror creates a relentless inner conflict that most men never see. On one hand, she feels an instinctive magnetic pull toward you. Her body language may soften, her eyes may search for you in a crowd, and her thoughts may be consumed by your presence. But on the other hand, the moment these feelings arise, her defense system kicks into overdrive. The fear screams louder than the attraction, insisting that to show warmth is to show weakness, and that weakness is dangerous. It tells her that the moment she reveals her hand, the dynamic shifts. She goes from being the prize to being the pursuer, a role she has been conditioned to believe is both unattractive and risky. Therefore, her silence and her distance are not evidence of a lack of feeling. They are the exact opposite. They are the proof that she feels too much. The intensity of her attraction is what fuels the strength of her defenses. She isn't playing a game for sport. She is building a fortress around her heart because the potential pain of being truly seen and subsequently rejected is a wound she does not believe she can stomach. Every aloof comment, every delayed text, every time she acts distracted in your presence is a brick in that wall. A desperate attempt to maintain control over a situation that feels terrifyingly uncontrollable. She is not emotionless. She is in a state of higher alert emotional turmoil, battling the very real human desire for connection against an equally powerful instinct for self-preservation. While a woman may consciously suppress her feelings, her true interest inevitably leaks out, not in grand declarations, but in a series of subtle, often contradictory behaviors. These are the unconscious tells. The cracks in her carefully maintained facade that reveal the internal battle between her attraction and her fear. The most prominent of these is inconsistency. She might be engaged and warm in one interaction, sharing a moment of genuine connection, only to become distant and withdrawn the next time you see her. This isn't random. It's a strategic oscillation. After a moment of vulnerability, her fear kicks in, compelling her to pull back to reestablish a sense of control and safety, to ensure she hasn't revealed too much too soon. This push-on-pull dynamic is maddening for a man seeking linear progress, but for her, it's a way to manage the pace of emotional exposure. Another powerful indicator is her heightened emotional reactivity to things that should, in theory, be minor. Because her emotional investment is high, she cannot maintain a facade of complete indifference. You might casually mention another woman, and she will respond with a sharp, defensive comment or an unusually pointed question. You might tease her playfully, and she will snap back with a cutting remark that seems disproportionate to the joke. These spikes of emotion are golden signals. True indifference does not generate such intense reactions. Her overreaction is a direct leak of the investment she is trying so hard to conceal. Similarly, she may express her interest through criticism and teasing rather than compliments. Affection feels too vulnerable. A playful critique allows her to engage with you directly while hiding behind a veil of sarcasm or mock challenge. If she remembers a small, insignificant detail you mentioned weeks ago and brings it up in a teasing manner, it's not a sign of disinterest, it's proof she was listening intently and has been thinking about you. Beyond her words and moods, her body will often betray her. These are the most honest signals, as they are far more difficult to consciously control. Watch for the lingering glance she thinks you don't notice, which she quickly breaks the moment you meet her eyes. Observe how she subtly positions herself in a room to be near you, or how her body language leaning in during conversation, pointing her feet toward you, playing with her hair, contradicts her verbally aloof stance. She might find excuses for casual accidental touch, like brushing your arm or adjusting your collar. These microsignals are the emotional residue of feelings too strong to be fully contained. They are the unconscious admissions of attraction that her conscious mind is too terrified to make. To the untrained eye, these behaviors can be mistaken for mixed signals or simple friendliness. But to the man who understands their true origin, they form a clear, consistent pattern of concealed desire, revealing the truth her words will not admit. The dynamic of hidden female interest creates a critical, often unspoken, test of a man's character. Her mixed signals and veneer of indifference are not merely a passive condition. They are an active, albeit often unconscious, trial of your inner strength, patience, and self-assurance. In this context, your reaction is everything. The man who fails this test is the one who panics in the face of uncertainty. He misinterprets her protective distance as a personal rejection and responds by chasing harder. He floods her with attention, seeks constant validation through texts, over-explains his actions, and essentially begs for clarity. In doing so, he commits the very error her behavior is designed to screen for. He reveals that his emotional stability and sense of self-worth are dependent on her approval. by frantically trying to prove his value to her. He inadvertently demonstrates that he does not possess a solid, independent sense of it himself. This neediness confirms her deepest fears. If she were to be vulnerable with a man who crumbles under the mild pressure of her silence, how would he handle the real challenges of a relationship? Conversely, the man who understands this dynamic responds not by chasing the mystery, but by embodying the solution. He remains grounded and observant. He does not take her aloofness personally because he recognizes it as a potential sign of investment, not a verdict on his worth. He refuses to be drawn into a cycle of pursuit that would force him to sacrifice his own frame, the core of his principles: confidence and self-respect. Instead of demanding answers with questions like, "Do you like me?" or "Why are you being so cold?" he creates an environment of safety through his own unwavering consistency. He remains engaging and present when they interact, but he does not linger in uncertainty. He has his own mission, his own life, and his own priorities. And he demonstrates this by not dropping everything for her intermittent attention. This groundedness is profoundly attractive because it communicates strength without aggression and confidence without arrogance. He proves that he is not shaken by her emotional waves, that he is a stable harbor, not another boat being tossed about in the same storm. He becomes the rare man who doesn't react to her tests, but simply endures them, forcing her to eventually confront the instability of her own facade. By holding his frame, he doesn't just pass her test. He redefines the entire game, shifting the dynamic from one of pursuit and resistance to one of mutual recognition of value. The ultimate and most profound irony in this complex dance is that the woman who presents the greatest challenge, who guards herself with the most formidable walls of indifference, is very often the one who harbors the deepest and most genuine attraction. The women who are freely available, who offer quick smiles and easy affection, often do so precisely because their emotional investment is shallow. They have nothing to lose. In contrast, the woman who is a fortress is protecting a treasure. Her coldness is not the absence of warmth, but the deliberate containment of a fire so intense she fears it will consume her if let loose. Understanding this paradox is the key that unlocks the entire dynamic. Her silence is not a void to be filled with your anxious chatter, but a space to be respected, a silence that speaks volumes about the depth of her feeling. The mixed signals and contradictions are not a rejection of you, but the external symptoms of an intense internal war between her powerful desire for connection and her equally powerful instinct for self-preservation. The final unmasking, the moment when her walls finally crumble, is not something that can be forced or demanded. It is a surrender that she must choose voluntarily, and it only happens when she feels truly safe. This safety is not built by your pleas or your proofs of devotion, but by your unwavering demonstration of strength and consistency. When she has tested your patience and seen that you will not lose yourself in the process, when she observes that your self-worth is not shaken by her games, and that your frame remains solid, her respect for you grows. It is this combination of respect and attraction that becomes an unstoppable force. The man who has held his ground without becoming bitter or distant becomes irreplaceable in her eyes. He has proven himself to be a safe harbor, and the relief of finally lowering her defenses and being seen for who she truly is, without fear of being devalued or abandoned, is an immense release. The moment she reveals the raw, unguarded affection she has been hiding all along is a transformative one. It changes the entire nature of the connection, revealing that what seemed like a frustrating game was, in reality, the arduous and necessary path to a profound and earned intimacy. The warmth was always there, beating fiercely beneath the surface, simply waiting for a man strong enough to create the conditions where it could finally emerge without fear.